Oh, this is the video we were gonna watch. I'm an idiot. Alright, boys. People Pog, get your videos ready. Get your smiles ready. Here we go. If you have a bag of Skittles you're currently eating, you might want to get another one, because this one's 30 minutes long, okay? It's a story about Ocarina of Time, alright? I know a lot of you guys love it. I know a lot of you guys have lived through it. Let's do it. A Gold Blood original series. Oh, that's crazy nice production.
All the time.
I beat that game.
Sorrow is no stranger to Zelda stories. Casting shadows over all the exploration, puzzle solving, monster battles, and rescue missions loom big clouds of sadness that, over the course of the series, has been the Zelda ingredient the writers have been slowly directing our attention to the most. Sorrow is being written like a disease, a virus infecting the happiness of each story world, and Link, the hero of these stories, assumes the role of the healer, burdened with flushing out the virus and restoring healthy emotional balances to each one. More often than not, it's the supporting characters that carry this sorrow disease, and their dialogue is constantly connecting these two themes of healing and sadness together, asking Link to heal their sorrows and ease their regrets. Titles like Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess go so far as to position these themes of sadness and regret into the opening dialogue, while Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild throw Link into broken worlds already operating in the aftermath of destruction, easing the regrets of the characters as they awaken to fulfill their destiny. Oracle of Ages and Seasons use flames of sorrow and despair as the villain's dominant threat upon the world, but what's important is that all of the sorrowful dialogue is unavoidable, necessary rites of passage for story progression, and all Zelda stories carry that Zelda sorrow language like this.
Wow.
Except one. Ocarina of Time is often overlooked when it comes to discussing which Zelda story is the saddest, and this might be because Ocarina director Shigeru Miyamoto and script director Toru Osawa don't use that Zelda sorrow language like its successors. Those recurring themes of sorrow, regret, sadness, and even healing appear nowhere in any corner of the script. Instead, Osawa sprinkles throughout the character dialogue this kind of off-center, cryptic, poetic language. Themes like the clear water surface reflecting growth, melodies drawing you into infinite darkness, memories of younger days, the flow of time being always cruel, being consumed by greed, and childish minds turning to noble ambition.
This production is nuts.
In the past, these themes have been discussed as standalone sentences, called upon in singular form to assist theories or arguments generated among the Zelda community. But tracking this language back through Ocarina's entire script begins to reveal a few continuous thematic threads that, when isolated, actually form the skeletons of not only one, but two narratively complete stories of sorrow.
Make the screen bigger? I can't, dude. I tried.
With the bones of these two threads now in mind, small details that add to the muscle of these two stories begin to pop out. Miyamoto and Osawa have used everything in the Ocarina toolbox: dialogue, locations, characters, nature, events, architecture, mechanics, and sound design to hide away subtle clues that all point back to these two sorrow threads. Instead of casting obvious clouds of sadness above the adventure through such direct, sorrowful dialogue, the creative team have buried sadness down in the subtext of the story. And as we begin to uncover all of the hidden details, it becomes clear that Ocarina of Time is, without a doubt, the saddest Zelda story no one noticed. In order to make sense of Miyamoto and Osawa's two sorrow threads, we first need to take a look at the beats that construct Ocarina of Time's main adventure. And the story opens on the Great Deku Tree sending Navi the fairy to summon Link for a meeting.
I've been there.
Sword and shield in hand, Link is warned by the Deku Tree of an evil spreading across the land of Hyrule and is sent to gather the 3 spiritual stones before Ganondorf does. 1 inside the tree, 1 in a cave, and 1 in the belly of a giant fish. Using the 3 stones and the Ocarina of Time given to him by Princess Zelda, Link accidentally leads Ganondorf into the Sacred Realm and subsequently to the Triforce, granting
Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't beaten Ocarina of Time.
him one evil wish: govern Hyrule. Link sleeps for 7 years and wakes as an adult to discover the once healthy Hyrule is now Dark Hyrule, and is sent on a new quest to destroy the curses now skulking inside Hyrule's 5 temples. Through tackling this evil, all 5 sages are awakened. Link's once childhood friends now transcended to the position of guardian over each realm of Hyrule: forest, mountain, lake, underworld, and desert. With their help, Link takes down Ganondorf and saves Zelda, and after succeeding, is sent back in time before Ganondorf hatches his plan.
Jesus.
This top adventure line is the face of Ocarina and is essentially the blurb
No way!
on the back of the box, complete with deadly dungeons, weapons of great power, and time travel. So where do these 2 sorrow threads come into play? Well, they actually begin where the entire Ocarina narrative begins, in that harrowing scene I showed in the prologue, the death of the Great Deku Tree.
Wait, so idiot, where do we go from here
This
if we
scene
beat
with
this?
the Deku Tree's death is
We did
by
it all.
far the most dense in its layered symbolism, and that its meaning translates differently depending on which one of Osawa's 3 threads is being followed. On the adventure line, his
play
death is
generic,
used as the vehicle to establish Link's motivation. A curse spreads across Hyrule and Link witnesses the effects firsthand in the Deku Tree's death. Off Link goes. But the first sorrow thread, though, specifically requires attention paid not to why the Deku Tree died, but how. Emphasis is placed heavily on the importance of life and natural balance across Ocarina of Time. Before his death, the Deku Tree recounts to Link Hyrule's creation story in detail. 3 goddesses, each with their own
So you a
divine
virgin?
spirit of power, wisdom, and courage,
Get back to me after this
cultivate the land, the law, and life to uphold that law in Hyrule. With this creation story embedded in the DNA of Ocarina's larger narrative, the land of Hyrule is inaugurated, not just as a blank world serving Link's exploration, but as a living, breathing organism, almost sentient with different moods, weather conditions, and sleeping patterns.
Holy
Following
shit.
the creation story, the Deku Tree goes on to speak of a wicked man of the desert who was the one to cast the death curse on the tree, and it's here, in the tension of Hyrule's natural balance and the death curse, that Osawa's first thread begins to take shape. While the characters in other Zelda stories are the direct victims of the series' sorrow disease, in Ocarina it is Hyrule's nature that has been afflicted by Ganondorf's curse. Link is restoring a natural order tipped off balance, and this quest for purification echoes the ethics found in the Japanese homegrown religion of Shintoism.
I live right by the Fushimi Inari Shrine. I've had a relation with this shrine since I was a child. Because of that, I felt that I was always protected, as if it's my guardian angel.
That's Miyamoto at the Fushimi Inari Shrine in southern Kyoto in Japan. Miyamoto and Osawa's childhood hometown. While the direct influence of this Shinto
Hooray!
shrine can be found in Miyamoto's Star Fox series, the broader spirit of the Shinto faith is embedded on a larger scale across his entire gamography. None more so than the Zelda series, which are always stories reverberating off the needs and rhythm of nature.
Interesting.
Yet, no Zelda story is quite as distilled in its use of Shintoist ethics than Ocarina of Time, and this is the first sorrow thread, the Shinto line.
Make cam smaller, wide, hard.
Got you covered.
great love and respect for nature is the defining foundation of the Shinto religion. The minutiae of a moral compass is replaced with harvesting a desire to remain in touch with kami, the spiritual energy of a particular place or a member of nature. The name kami can be translated to gods or nature spirits, while the name Shinto literally translates to the way of the gods. The fox Miyamoto addresses at the Fushimi Inari Shrine is considered a messenger of the Inari god, Inari being the name of the mountain the shrine sits at the base of, believed to host the god of rice, fertility, and industry. Purification is a key aspect of all ritual activity in Shinto, and it exists to reestablish order and balance between nature, humans, and deities.
I didn't see any of that in Zelda games.
Rituals counteract the threat of pollution, which is considered an obstruction to the flow of life and blessing from the kami. The anthropomorphization or physical representation of kami spirits in fiction isn't uncommon, and the best visual example might be from Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke, a film that borrows heavily from Shintoist artifacts. The biggest examples being the lives of the boars, wolves, the kodama, who represent the spirits of individual trees.
Have you guys watched this before?
The forest spirit.
Have you guys seen that movie before?
A symbol of harmony, who embodies the larger kami of the entire forest. In Mononoke, San and Ashitaka are seen as the saviors in a world that has forgot about kami, rhythm, nature, and consequently, ultimate importance. Miyamoto and Osawa's work in Ocarina of Time also borrow from the same Shintoist framework. Different villages with their own unique races occupy different areas of Hyrule, and each race is bound elementally to their own section of nature. Gorons to mountain and fire, Zoras to water, and Kokiri to forest. These rural, kami-like races dedicate their worship towards the greater nature spirits, the Great Deku Tree, in which, similarly to the forest spirit in Mononoke, embodies the kami of Kokiri Forest, and Lord Jabu Jabu, the patron deity of the Zora race, thought to embody the divine spirit and protector of the Zora ancestral lands, always sitting in some sort of altar. Jabu only grants entry when presented with a fish offering, and this concept of offering food like rice and fish is taken directly from Shintoist practices. The beta version of this scene shows a pedestal with an ocarina engraved on top, suggesting that music was originally required to open Jabu Jabu's mouth, and this references a Shintoist ritual practice called kaguda, aka god entertainment, which is used during festivals to appease kami spirits. In fact, music in Ocarina is the direct replacement for these Shinto.
So Ocarina stole all of its content, essentially. So even Ocarina, a game that people praise, stole all of its content.
Rituals. Saria explains that music can be used to speak to the spirits of the forest, and moments exist when music and dance are used to bring happiness to those elementally bound occupants across Hyrule. In Ocarina, music calls down rain. It splits waterfalls, summons the sun and moon, and calls a horse to Link's side. Music here plays the role of connecting Link directly with the rhythm of Hyrule's nature. Kurosawa and Miyamoto also achieve this connection through their subtle design elements. The 3 dungeons Link must explore first during his childhood phase are all environments crafted directly from the greater nature deities. Inside the Deku Tree, inside Jabu Jabu's belly, and inside Dodongo's cavern, which upon closer inspection is actually built from the remains of an old dinosaur with skulls and rib cages and things like that. Link then purifies each dungeon, ridding them of the infestations placed there by Ganondorf, and is rewarded with one of the 3 spiritual stones, symbols of that section of nature he's purified: forest, mountain, water. These elemental stones are then used to open the door of time, and the sacred act of opening the sanctuary door during Shinto ceremonies is also recreated here. Music once again used to replace the concept of ritual to open the door to the sacred realm and access to the gods. Link's childhood phase is dedicated predominantly to connecting him with the idea of what a healthy Hyrule looks like, and Osawa and Miyamoto place such a strong emphasis on this to allow for the tragedy of what happens next hit harder.
I gotta play this game on stream.
Shintoism largely died in the post-World War II era. In the aftermath of the war, most Japanese came to believe that their hubris of empire had led to their downfall. Lust for territory blinded their leaders to the importance of their homeland. We see this theme of territorial conquest playing out through both villains in Ocarina and Mononoke, Ganondorf and Lady Eboshi, whose objectives on the domination of the world rather than seeking to establish harmony. Eboshi plans to kill the forest spirit in order to stop the spread of nature, making it easier for her own town to conquer and prosper in the iron-rich grounds of the area. Ganondorf, in his quest of greed to gain complete mastery of the world, places curses upon all of Hyrule's nature deities, and with Kami now disregarded, nature retaliates. Kami spirits are of two minds. They can nurture and love when respected, or they can bring destruction and disharmony when disregarded. And so while manifesting into only smaller monsters during Link's childhood phase with parasitic spiders in the Deku Tree, dinosaur infestations in the cave, and electric leech-like anemones in Jabba Jabba's belly, when Link wakes after that 7 years, the effects of the curse now affect Dark Hyrule at large. Lake Hylia has been drained, Death Mountain suffers from endless eruption, monsters cover the floor of Kokiri Forest, dark spirits are set loose in Kakariko Village, and Ganondorf's minions gather in the desert. Shintoism also believes that upon death, souls with unsettled disputes in life become ghosts. And so the appearance of big Po ghosts across Hyrule, spirits of concentrated hatred, are now an occurrence. Instead of dungeons crafted by Hyrule's nature, the dungeons Link must purify as an adult now have man-made qualities to their architecture, echoing the sentiment that the world Link now occupies is built on the strength of man instead of a natural balance. And so the Shinto line is really a story about the battle over the nature of Hyrule, and Link is the cure, purifying the world with his music and weapons of great power. After destroying the manifestations of the curse in each temple, Hyrule physically begins a process of healing, and the new awakened sages reward Link with elemental medallions.
Hooray!
Light, forest, fire, water, shadow, and spirit. With the forest now purified, a Deku Sprout shoots up to one day grow and become the new Deku Tree. The volcano is calmed, the ice melts in Zora's domain, the lake refills with clear water, and the infinite darkness is destroyed in the underworld. An element of the Shinto creation myth is the existence of a land of the dead called Yomi, an evil realm
This
where
video
the
is
dead
some of the
reside.
highest quality I've
The
ever seen.
spirits living in Yomi are malicious and lonely and try to drag people down from the land of the living. At the very end, Ganondorf's castle, the beacon of Hyrule's pollution, crumbles, and the Light Sage calls upon the gods to open the sealed door and send Ganondorf into the void of Evil Realm. Ganondorf is sent to Yomi. And so Miyamoto and Osawa's first sorrow thread is, in essence, a message about nature and the importance of striking a harmony with it.
Anyone who
Greed
cares
and
this much
hatred
about
are
Zelda
pollution
as a
to this
weeb
natural
changed my
balance. and
mind.
We're all
if you don't
weebs.
respect it, nature will surely retaliate. Who knows what might happen to those who are consumed by greed?
Hello? Jesus.
Osawa's third
Look at
and
this
final
quality.
thread
What the
might be the
fuck?
most important and requires attention paid to these last pieces of poetic dialogue, growth, childish minds and memories of younger days, etc. These kinds of references to age and growth are nowhere to be found in other Zelda stories, but Link's age is the focus of about 90% of all the characters in Ocarina of Time. Before Link enters the sacred realm to sleep for that 7 years, the supporting characters make sure Link knows exactly how little the world expects of him.
Dude, this
With
music.
just a little kid, fairy boy, forest boy, kid, sunny, kid, fairy boy, boy, lad, son, kid, boy,
Lad,
kid,
boys,
kid,
lad,
boy,
boys,
forest boy,
boys,
fairy
lad,
boy,
boys.
son, little kid, and kid. Seeing Link for the child that he is a relatively fair assessment, and these references to his disposition would render unimportant if it weren't for the equally ferocious obsession the characters have with the idea of manhood. Becoming a man is an ideology the characters, including Link's childhood friends, seem to consider as the highest level of honor. There's talk of being a real man, not being a real man without a fairy, Darunia wanting Link to prove he is a real man, Princess Ruto telling Link he has been a terrible man to keep her waiting, and Naburu wishing she had kept a promise all those years ago after seeing how handsome Link had become as a man. The third thread for Link is an inward journey. It is Osawa's exploration of the transition from childhood to adulthood, and just like the real world, it is both awkward and tragic. It's the growing up line.
I need to work on that one. I think that inside every adult is the heart of a child. We just gradually convince ourselves that we have to act more like adults.
If threads 1 and 2 are about why and how the Deku Tree died,
True.
then finding a foothold in the growing up line requires an examination into who
Fuck, chat, this is gonna make us feel sad. Oh, God, get ready.
the Deku Tree is. The children of Kokiri Forest describe the Deku Tree as not only the guardian of the entire forest, but also their father, claiming that he was the one to give life to the Kokiri race, as well as everything in the forest. The name Kokiri, when translated from Japanese kanji to English, echoes this sentiment, with ko meaning kid or child, and ki meaning tree. So here we have children of the tree, which not only aligns with themes explored on the Shinto line, but gives the entire forest a childlike attitude. The layout of the forest is a playground with ladders, ramps, tree houses, secret crawling holes, and mazes. Similar to Neverland from the Peter Pan stories, Kokiri Forest exists as this insular, magical realm separate from the real world. Children never grow up here, and each child is allied with a fairy companion, the mark of a true Kokiri. And the story begins with the Deku Tree sending Link his very first fairy companion, Navi.
Fairies.
And so Kokiri Forest is the physical representation of Link's childhood, and this is the foothold for the growing up line. Though as carefree as it appears, Kokiri Forest isn't without sadness. Humans name Kokiri Forest the Forbidden Forest, and some children explain that those who enter from the outside without a fairy transform into Selphos, those skeleton monsters Link faces in future temples. We see this happen later when a man enters the forest and falls asleep against this stump, only to vanish later, leaving a Kokiri girl to explain that he's now lost to the woods. Everybody, Stelphos. But children cannot leave either. The great Deku Tree said that if a Kokiri leaves the woods, he or she will die. And so with no one entering as an outsider and no one leaving as a child of the tree, we have this protective bubble around what stands to be childhood. And some of the Deku Tree's dialogue aligns with this idea, stating that as the source of life, Kokiri Forest stands as a barrier, deterring outsiders and maintaining order of the world. There is a purity and innocence being protected here. But this protective bubble begins to collapse when the father is killed. In the wake of the Deku Tree's death, Link is forced to exit Kokiri Forest. The Deku Sprout reveals later that Link is actually an outsider, brought by his mother to the Deku Tree years ago, seeking protection during the Great War. So Link is an outsider with a Kokiri fairy,
is nuts.
and with this dual citizenship, can travel to and fro between childhood and the adult world, yet not belonging to either one. Even on the outside, Link still sees the world through the eyes of a child, and Miyamoto and Osawa keep the design playful during this entire childhood phase. The castle market is full of life with dancing couples, dogs, and playing children. The dungeons are full of magic and mystery. Link is peeking through windows, climbing vines, and playing hide and seek with castle guards. But things turn grim after Link passes through the appropriately named Door of Time and plucks the Master Sword from the pedestal. Link undergoes a physical transformation and wakes as an adult, with the Master Sword now containing the essence of his childhood, aka memories of younger days. Now in an adult body, in an adult world, The bleakness of adulthood and responsibility comes at Link with everything it has. The first reveal, the old marketplace, once bustling with color, now cold and desolate, and it's in this moment that Osawa establishes Link and Ganondorf, who on the adventure line represent the opposing forces of good and evil, and nature versus man on the Shinto line, into their designed role of childhood versus adulthood. Ganondorf represents everything Link isn't, and Osawa uses this storytelling device to attack the only thing Link is holding onto: his relationships. As Link gains back ground from Ganondorf in his purification quest on the Shinto line, on the growing up line, a slow subtraction begins to take place. The more Hyrule gains, the more Link loses. A clip of Miyamoto and Zelda producer Eiji Onuma mentioned in an interview the importance of Link leaving the four girls from his childhood behind. Link must lose everything to save the world. This plays heavily on the everything has to come from somewhere natural balance of Shintoism. You don't just get wood, you have to chop down a tree. You can wash away corruption, but it has to go somewhere. In this case, the corruption is lifted off the nature of Hyrule and onto Link himself. This is his designed role in nature. But we're not done yet. While each sage's relevance stems from their race and elemental essence on the Shinto line, on the growing up line, Osawa has infused these characters with characteristics and dialogue symbolic of milestones one must navigate during adolescence: friendship, family, romance, loyalty, and sex. Saria's dialogue dedicated predominantly to friendship, Darunia to sworn brotherhood and family after Link saves the starving Goron race. Ruto's character, obsessed with love and marriage, Princess Zelda's loyal bodyguard, Impa, solely focused on Zelda's safety, asks Link to protect Zelda in her stead, and Nabooru, whose dialogue suggests sexual activity and comments on how handsome Link has become as a man. And so those medallions Link collects from each sage are also emblems of Link's adult achievements, and Link's childhood guide, the Owl, closes this chapter off, congratulating Link on fully maturing as an adult. Childish minds turn to noble ambition. But at this point, Link has lost everything and everyone, except now as officially a man, and with his childhood essence still attached to his back, can now enter Ganondorf's castle to kick off the final chapter and the final fight: childhood versus adulthood.
This quality is actually insane. Kid! Man.
Ocarina of Time's code disables the ability to defeat Ganondorf with any weapon other than the Master Sword. The growing up line requires a poetic close to this final chapter, and so it must be the Master Sword, aka the essence of childhood, which delivers the final blow to adulthood.
We win!
After defeating Ganondorf and ultimately avenging the Deku Tree and the forest, Zelda sends Link back in time to his childhood version.
Regain your lost time.
But the greatest tragedy is yet to come. With the Master Sword back in the pedestal, the essence of childhood now falls to Link's fairy companion, Navi, who remains Link's key back into Kokiri Forest, where he can live out the rest of his childhood. But with no explanation, Osawa writes Navi out of the story, and the very last shot is Navi leaving Link behind.
Navi, you prick!
Link's last connection to his childhood is severed, and if he was to return, would become a Stelphos like the man against the stump. He is forever banished from his childhood. This Stalfos character from Twilight Princess, aka the hero's shade who speaks of easing his regrets, is confirmed by the creators to be this Link from Ocarina of Time. And so, Miyamoto and Osawa's third thread of sorrow is one that comes full circle. The growing up line is a losing story, and though the purified world of Hyrule lives on, Link pays the ultimate price and falls victim to what he's really been fighting against from the beginning: the cruel flow of time. Time is the true villain of the story, and this kind of message about losing childhood mirrors Miyamoto's personal ethos when it comes to designing his games. I think that inside every adult is the heart of a child. We just gradually convince ourselves that we have to act more like adults.
Jesus.
Ultimately, Ocarina of Time is a story about transformation and the inevitable sorrow that comes attached to it. While other Zelda stories allow the audience to consider sorrow and despair through more direct means, Ocarina creates an indirect, sorrowful atmosphere by establishing, then removing, a world of happiness.
Damn.
On each line, Link loses something in the death of the Great Deku Tree: a mentor, a protector, and a father. And this gives way to three types of transformation.
Dark. Yeah, but I
Transformation
like this.
of Link as a
Infinite cry,
person,
chat, hold me.
transformation of the people around him, and a transformation of the world he inhabits. But it's actually in Ganondorf that we find Miyamoto and Osawa's greatest storytelling weapon. Appropriately named King of Thieves, each line explores the three things Ganondorf has stolen:
Quality.
the Triforce, the health of Hyrule's nature, and what might be his greatest crime of all time, Link's childhood. While that Zelda sorrow language may not appear in Ocarina of Time's script, Link is still healing sorrows and easing regrets on scales far larger than its successors. In the end, Link is changed forever, a savior banished from his childhood, destined to roam alone in a world that doesn't remember him.
Fuck.
And all of this buried down in the subtext beneath the heroic adventures of the main story. Ocarina of Time is the saddest Zelda story no one noticed.
What the fuck? Jesus Christ. That was probably the best video we've ever watched. What the fuck? What the fuck was that video? That was a fucking movie. Holy shit. The quality was nuts, dude. Yeah, I'll link it. Damn, that was good. Hey, we unlocked it. Look, that may have been sad, but nothing sadder than this guy spamming PokeW in my chat, honestly. Here. This only has 780,000 views. What the fuck? Here, in between all those lol W's, there you go. That's the video. That was so fucking good. Jesus fucking Christ. That was insane. That quality was nuts, dude.